You are now listening to The Unwavering, the movement dedicated to educating and empowering the brave men and women who have or are still serving our great nation. Thank you for tuning in for yet another episode of The Unwavering. Before we begin, as always, I want to go ahead and take a quick second to say thank you for all of you active duty service members, veterans, family members, and the community who continues to support us. It's because of you guys that we're able to even have this show and be able to connect with different people and hopefully share stories, information, or resources that can help you and your families. So today we have two of my really good friends and mentors. Zach, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, my name's Zach. I served as a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps for almost 12 years as an avionics technician and an H-1 crew chief.
And Mark?
How you doing, guys? I'm Mark, the staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. Actually, I'm still in. I'm a 6323 avionics technician as well, and AO.
For all you guys wondering what an AO is, if you're in a different military branch, AO is our aerial observer, so he's going to be part of the crew going out there supporting those missions. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it. As this podcast has grown and we've started to reach different people talking about different subjects, utilizing the VA home loan, how to go ahead and go through the interview process, all these different things. There's always been one topic that has been in the back of my mind, one that I felt that was extremely important, more so for our community than any other. That is combat. So many of us who join the military were really young. We join at 17, 18 years old. Directly out of high school, and I don't think we fully comprehend just what we're getting ourselves into. We know that there's a possibility that we may go to combat. We've joined during a time of war, but I want to get your guys' take. When you guys joined and you signed that dotted line, did you really understand what you were getting yourself into? Did you know that you could possibly see combat, be injured, or even killed in the service to your country?
I would say, no, I didn't have any idea. I joined because I rocked out of college and had nowhere else to go. I knew I couldn't go back to my parents' place. So I went to the recruiting station, talked to the recruiter, and then signed the contract that day. And 4 days after that, I was at Parris Island at boot camp. So for me, I just needed somewhere to go. My dad was in the Marine Corps, so I knew he could deploy and everything, but it wasn't anything I really thought of. I guess it did hit me that something could happen.
And Mark, what about yourself?
I actually joined out of college, but I had always wanted to join either way. I 100% I wanted to go. So even at the recruiting station, I was trying to figure out the way to go. 9/11 kind of put that in my head when I was a kid, seeing that, and it always affected me and my friends. So me and three of my closest friends, we all joined knowing we wanted to go. Some of them went into the Army. My closest ones went into the Marine Corps with me. When I first checked into 466, I asked, I think it was 2 weeks when I checked in, and they pulled us in, said they had bumped up our deployment because we were actually supposed to leave in 6 months, but then I guess the unit went down and we were leaving in a week, and I had just checked into that unit. So I asked to go ADVON as well. So literally, I think 2 weeks of me checking into 466, I was deployed, but I wanted to go. I understood the ramifications of that deployment.
I think I kind of relate to both of you in a sense because much like Zach, I kind of had, an understanding of what I was getting myself into, but I don't think I fully comprehended the things that I would later be exposed to, seeing my friends getting their limbs amputated and things like that. It never once occurred to me that that was what I was going to have to face in the future. But like you, Mark, I would say 9/11 was a huge impact for me. And I remember even as a kid, 9/11 happened when I was in the 5th grade. And I remember this specifically. I was in my 5th grade class, and I just remember our teacher completely pale, just bawling her eyes out. And she had the news on in our classroom. And I didn't really understand what war meant or things like that. All I knew was that there were people out there who have never met me, but because of where I live, they were willing to do whatever it takes to hurt me and those I loved. So ever since a kid, I had two ideas. One, I wanted to be a doctor. Two, I wanted to join the military. Obviously, I didn't go the doctor route, which I'm grateful for now. No offense to any doctors out there, but I wanted to do something that even if it would put me in danger, would do something to protect my family. So, like I said, I kind of relate to both of you, but some of the things I've been exposed to, I would have never imagined. And the reason I bring this up is because, Mark, you and I were having a conversation the other day. How many of these people are joining the military today during a time of war, but they don't really understand the ramifications of what they're doing? They don't understand. There's a very real possibility that you may see combat. You may see things that you don't want to see and that you'll never be able to forget. Don't get me wrong, there's tons of amazing things, but dive in more into this topic, it's the military. It's not sugar-coated. It's not a video game. This is a very real thing going on, and you need to be aware of the possibility of you getting into combat, an attack, or even during training exercises. I've had friends who have been injured during training exercises and lost limbs and stuff like that as well. What is your guys' take? Do you think that they fully understand what they're signing up for? And if they don't, what's your advice to them?
I mean, I don't think you could fully understand anything until you live it. Like I knew that, just like Mark said, I was wanting to go and do things. I just didn't know what that all entailed. You train and get ready for everything. But first time I got ordered and rocketed over when I was deployed in Afghanistan, I about pissed my pants, dude. Your first firefight, really eye-opening. You really learn a lot about yourself. I think back on it now, it took me a minute to get used to like how to adjust and make it to where you can actually get through stuff.
I agree with Zach. You never know what you're getting yourself into. You can only have a perception of what you think it might be. To fully understand what you got yourself into, you can only experience it firsthand. It's different, I would say, with this generation is more so because it's not as black and white, kind of a gray. You might see combat or you might be on the front line or something, but it just depends more so now. It's not as prevalent as it was back when the wars were going on.
Right, definitely. During Vietnam, they very well knew that when they got drafted, they were getting drafted for a very specific reason. The media was all over it. They got to see these news stories of people coming back, missing limbs, and it was a very real thing for them. And I think now we don't really do as great of a job talking about these things and bringing it up. So when I say this generation, I'm talking about myself. I'm not just talking about the people coming in after me. I'm talking about myself and those I joined with. I think even us, we had somewhat of an understanding, but nowhere near the amount as those people who got drafted during Vietnam and got to see every single day on the news what it was like fighting the Viet Cong and stuff like that. So I think you guys are absolutely right. These are times where we need to continue to educate people so that they don't forget and they're as prepared as they can be. The reason I brought you guys on is because you guys have seen things, you guys have been exposed to things that I myself have not been, but I know that a good majority of our military has been, and that's being injured in the line of duty. Now, whether that was in combat, whether that was during a training exercise, you guys have both experienced some pretty rough things in your life, and in my opinion, done an incredible job of overcoming them, or at least working to overcome them. I know you guys are still fighting through things every single day to live with what happened, but I kind of want to talk about that if you guys are okay with it. Can you guys describe what happened to you when you were in the military, when you got injured? Was it a training exercise gone wrong? Was it an attack? And how did you cope with those fears? And what are you doing now to kind of better yourselves?
Yeah, sure. What injured me happened on deployment 2011, 2012. I was overseas. It was kind of a freak accident. I wasn't shot at. I wasn't doing anything crazy. All I was doing was going out on a flight, normal day, go out fly around for 2 hours, see if we see anything, and then report back. One of the engines on my helicopter had a issue where it caused the oil to jump through the roof. So we had to secure that engine. And with us having a full combat load and all the people in the plane, we were too heavy, air was too thin, and we had tried to control the descent as best we could, but we ended up coming down too hard and had a hard landing. So I was thrown up into the roof in the left-hand doorpost and pretty much knocked out, broke my helmet and everything. And because I was on a deployment, they took me back, checked me out by medical staff and everything. I had a concussion, but because I was deployed, I think I was off the flight schedule for about a week. I kind of went through like a concussion protocol. And once I passed that, I was right back on the schedule and doing my job. So that part was kind of rough.
That's crazy to me because I feel like if that were to happen to me going back to work a week later, I feel like I still would have been pretty nervous, probably pretty skittish on the plane. Did you experience any of that after you went through that accident? How did you cope with that?
I kind of just put my head down and put on a brave face, to be honest. Like, I'd be lying to you if I told you it didn't affect me, because it surely did. I was extremely nervous. I think I had a couple panic attacks the night prior to the flight and everything, but I didn't help get the plane ready. Just overall was kind of a mess. In a way, it was kind of good, though, too, that I was deployed when it happened, because I kind of had to force myself to get over it and get through it. And it kind of got easier with every flight after that. So in a way, it was kind of good. But at the same time, looking back on it, do I think I was fit to fly? No. But I mean, I was deployed. It is what it is.
And Mark, what about yourself?
I was on MSG in Djibouti, Africa.
Can you, I don't mean to cut you off, I apologize, but just for the listeners, can you say what MSG stands for all those listeners who do not know?
Marine Security Guard, detachment commander for Djibouti, Africa.
So you were attached to an embassy?
Correct.
Okay.
So I was the head of the defense of that embassy. But we were coming back from training with command, and one of the locals hit our vehicles, two of our vehicles actually. But in the process, I actually got medevaced. I was pretty much paralyzed for about 6 months.
So this was just like a fluke accident. You guys were on your way back after training and you essentially got T-boned. Is that what happened?
Correct.
When that happened, and again, if it's, something you don't want to talk about, that's fine. But I'm just trying to get an understanding of what you went through and trying to share with the listeners. Things can happen. Just because you're not in combat doesn't mean you're not at risk. You're at risk every single day. Walking to work, you can get hit by a bus. I mean, it doesn't matter. So when that happened to you, I'm assuming because it did knock you out and you got medevac, you probably don't really remember too much about it. But from the parts that you do you remember what happened next? Like, was it your team that pulled you out? Do you have any recollection of those things that happened to you?
No, I woke up in the first hospital, but I know the driver died and the person that hit us died. So when I woke up in the hospital, that pretty much told me I had amnesia. I didn't know who I was for a long time there. That part of Africa is kind of crazy, like the Wild West there.
I couldn't even imagine, man. It's giving me chills listening about this. I think this is the first time that, Mark, you and I have actually talked about this, and probably the first time, honestly, you've even opened up to people about it aside from maybe your family. But after the accident and after you kind of began to realize who you were you left still in a state of shock? Like, how could this happen to me? Or what was going through your mind and how did you cope with that? Were there people that you surrounded yourself with? What was kind of your approach to handling this? And I know it's ongoing. I know you're still not 100%, but what were things that you did to kind of get you through it?
So my biggest fear was pretty much realized. Honestly, I'd rather have died than to be paralyzed or anything like that. My biggest fear coming in was to be paralyzed, to have a life like that. But I'd rather have died if you would have asked me prior to that. So going through that was mentally tough, I would say, until I was able to walk again. Throughout that process, it was pretty much the same thing as Zach. Like, I think being in the Marine Corps for that long, or like being conditions of what is expected of you and how you've been brought up, try not to feel sorry for yourself. You have to put on a facade for the most part. You don't want to show weakness or anything like that. So inside, it's different than what you're displaying from the outside. Internally, you're always going to have a battle. What are you doing? Like, how are you going to get better? But you'll never express that, or it's hard to express that to anybody else. You just don't want to compromise yourself and look different and change people's thoughts about you and your character, I would say, or how you feel.
And I think that's one thing, talking to Zach the other day, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea that I'm not a victim. I went through this, but I'm not a victim. I'm going to make it through this. Obviously, you're going through things that most people could never even imagine, but you're still putting on this persona that everything's okay. The main reason I really wanted to talk about this was because there are so many people out there who do the same thing, and some of them make it through, which is incredible, but we've all lost friends to mental health, suicide, and things like that. So if you guys were able to talk to someone within our community who has gone through an accident or things like that, what do you tell those guys who don't want to ask for help, who are more concerned with putting on the persona that, hey, I'm okay, I'm tough, I'm a Marine, I'm a soldier, I don't feel fear, I don't feel pain? Obviously, we all know that that's not true. Everybody feels a certain amount of fear and pain, and it's okay to ask for help, surround yourself with family, friends, people that you trust. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
You need to take a knee, take a break, because as a leader, I could better handle having one of my guys be out for a week or a couple of days to try and recoup than for him to keep going on and put himself in a bad situation because he's not thinking clearly. Head's not in the game, and then something even worse happens. He loses his life, or people around him loses their life. So just taking a knee and recognizing that it's okay to ask for help is key. Nobody told me that. I didn't want to be that medical bandit or have that negative stigma of having mental issues. So I was being tough about it, and it hurt me significantly in the long run.
And also with that is a lot of people don't want to say anything. So it's being in that other person's life, recognizing that. And it's still hard, period, to recognize that and to get them help when they don't want to help themselves. I think all of the things, those signs, people go down that road or change in personality.
Yeah, knowing you guys, I mean, we were super close, but I think there's been different times I've noticed something a little bit off about you guys. If I notice Zach is being a little distant, if I'm like texting him, calling him, like, what's going on? And I'm sure he gets irritated, but like you said, Mark, there are certain times where you can notice something about someone, and it's just hard. Me never being in an accident, it's hard for me to understand, am I pushing too much? Am I coming off like I'm trying to get in their business, or what am I doing? But again, I care about you guys and I care about other friends that I've served with. So even if I piss you guys off because I'm trying to check in, see how you're doing, I'm going to continue to do it. But is there like a certain line, in your guys' opinion, that we, even as close friends or family, shouldn't cross? There's something that makes it seem like we're treating you guys special, or are there things that bother you when people try and help you?
I mean, if you're like all over me all the time asking me about it, yeah, I mean, it's going to piss me off. Deep down, you have good intentions, but the key is ask, are you okay? Be upfront about it. I think is pretty important.
100% agree. Just like anybody else, don't want to be like annoyed. You feel like you're already getting enough attention, or if you're not, you already know what they're asking about, even if they don't say it. Even like family members, I know they're beating around the bush. Sometimes I knew they wouldn't call as much as they do or something like that, or like, I don't want to take away from their life.
Yeah. Looking at it from an outside perspective, if you were to ask me, are you taking pity on me? Are you taking time away from your life to see how I'm doing? No, that's just me. I want to know how you guys are doing. And like you guys said, there's limits. You should still continue to be there for them. And I know there's going to be times where there's going to be pushback. I'm sure there's times that I probably annoyed both of you. If you told me like, hey, you know what, just give me some time to myself, I'd be like, okay, you have to respect that boundary. It's all about us taking care of each other. There's going to be times where someone may not want to ask for help, and you need to know them well enough to know that they actually need help. Because like you said, Mark, someone may deny that they need help, but deep down, they really do. The best advice I can give from the perspective of a friend is make sure you're keeping an eye on them and making sure that they're okay. So thank you guys for sharing that. What was the thing that you think helped you push through the uncertainty, the pain, the fear? What got you through it? And if you can give one piece of advice to someone out there who is either in the situation of a friend or someone who's been injured, what would you tell them?
For me, if it wasn't for my wife and kids, parents, and honestly, you, Kevin, I probably wouldn't be here today. I reached a pretty low point and actually had a plan and drove out and went to execute that plan to end my life. I didn't, obviously, because I'm here today, but it's because I stopped thinking about myself and worrying about how I felt and how low I was, and actually had like a realization about like what it would mean if I was actually gone. I'd be forcing my kids to grow up without a father, my wife to become a widow. And that's what slapped me in the face. So I guess honesty, just being honest and really looking at and thinking about how you affect your friends and family around you is what helped me out.
So as far as I could give any advice, your first question was, how did I get through? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'd definitely say family, my fiance, now wife, and friends. We were pretty much always there for the one I didn't want them to be. There's no way I could have done it alone. If I was by myself, I definitely had those thoughts where Zach was at. But suicide is a solution to some. It's a very selfish solution. And you can justify it any way you want, but you're going to hurt a lot of people. If I didn't have my family and friends and my wife, there's no way. And as far as anybody that's going down that road or been in that position, think about how the people you're going to affect by doing that. So the same thing Zach was saying. There are going to be consequences that you'll never see because you're not here. You're going to change, even like your kids. You think they'd be better off without you. There's no way.
Thank you guys for sharing that. I know it's not something that you guys probably care to talk about very often, but I truly want to say thank you to both of you for coming on here, because we all know that our community, more than any other, is so prevalent to these things. At a very young age, people are exposed to the horrors of war, combat. I've seen things that I'm going to have to continue to carry for the rest of my life, much like you guys have. And I'm just glad that I have a community and friends that I can turn to when I am struggling. So thank you guys for doing the same in return, for sharing your stories and making a difference within our community. I truly appreciate it. And for all of you listeners, if you guys are going through those tough times, like Zach and Mark both said, just realize that things are going to get better. I'm not going to lie, you are going to have to suffer. There's going to be a lot of pain and stuff, but suicide, it's going to affect far more people than just you. So please, if you guys are going through something and you need help, feel free to ask for it. You've got a community of fellow veterans, family members, friends. Turn to them. If someone called me today and said, hey man, I'm going through this, like I just need to talk. And I don't care if we're talking for 18 hours straight. I will stay on the phone. I will go to see you. I'll spend time with you. There are people in your lives that truly care about you and want you to be here tomorrow and the next day. So just think about that and don't be too scared to ask for help. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today's episode. But for all of you listeners who were interested in this topic, hopefully it helped you. If you guys want to learn more about what it's like after being injured, what the Wounded Warrior Battalion and different programs like that are like, those are going to be future episodes that Mark and Zach both helped me talk about and discuss. So until next time.
Thanks for listening to The Unwavering. Please rate and comment on Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star and a great comment, and we may just read it on a future episode. Also, follow us on social platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check back with us next week.